They say some secrets die with us. But that one slipped out at the worst possible moment. We were in the middle of dinner, laughter, glasses clinking. Everything seemed perfect, until something inside me broke. And I spoke. It was like the air disappeared from the room. Eyes froze. Silence fell. And in that instant, I knew my family would never look at me the same way again. I didn't want it to happen like this. But once the truth is out, it doesn't go back in. Before I tell you what happened, let me ask you, have you ever held something in for so long that when it finally came out, it destroyed everything around you? Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and get ready. Because sometimes, the biggest mistake you can make is telling the truth when no one is ready to hear it. I'm Alina Carter, 29, and I've spent 5 years building my tech company in silence, while my family believed I was wasting my potential tonight. At my brother's engagement dinner, his fiancée just recognized me as the founder of the app her company acquired for millions. The look on my parents' faces when she whispered, "Wait, you're the founder of Nextech?" That moment was worth every holiday dinner where they pitied me. My brother's jaw is still on the floor. If you're watching this from a place where your dreams are dismissed, hit like and subscribe below. Growing up in Highland Park, a pristine suburb north of Chicago, meant living under suffocating expectations. My father, Richard Carter, wasn't just a surgeon, he was the surgeon other doctors called when cases became too complex. My mother, Diana, commanded courtrooms as a corporate attorney who never lost. And then there was my brother Jason, 4 years older, the golden child who followed in Dad's footsteps into medicine. Our house was beautiful but cold. Dinners weren't for relaxing, they were for reporting achievements. Mom would always begin so. What did everyone accomplish today? Jason never disappointed. Perfect test scores, prestigious internships, volunteer hours at hospitals. Then came my turn. I built a website, I once said at 15, practically glowing with pride after teaching myself HTML and CSS over a weekend. Mom gave me that smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes. "That's nice, honey, but shouldn't you focus on debate prep? Colleges want real commitments, not hobbies." Dad nodded and turned back to Jason to ask about his AP Bio project. Message received. Computers were toys. Success wore a white coat or carried a leather briefcase. My bedroom became my sanctuary. A quiet universe filled with code printouts, sketched wireframes, and online forums where people spoke the language I loved. While Jason's walls showcased framed diplomas and science medals, mine were covered in sticky notes, filled with logic structures and interface drafts. I stayed up until 2 a.m. learning Python and JavaScript. Then I'd drag myself through chemistry class on 3 hours of sleep. No one noticed, unless my G dipped then. Suddenly, I mattered. When I was 16, I built a scheduling tool for my school's chaotic annual fundraiser. It cut planning time in half. Mrs. Winters, the event coordinator, was floored. "Your daughter has remarkable talent," she told my parents. Mom smiled politely. "Alina has many interests, but we're preparing for law school." Law school? They'd already picked a future I hadn't agreed to live, junior year. I developed an inventory system for our school's library and submitted it to a regional coding competition. I made it to the finals, but the event fell on the same day as Jason's medical school acceptance celebration. "We're so sorry, sweetie," Mom said, not looking particularly sorry. "But your brother has worked his whole life for this. You understand, right?" So I competed alone. I was the only student there without family in the stands. And I won first place. I came home clutching a trophy. No one looked up. Jason was surrounded by a crowd of relatives clinking champagne flutes. "That's wonderful, dear," Dad muttered. Then he returned to toasting Jason. That night, I stopped waiting for their approval. I didn't need it. I'd built something too real, too impactful, too loud to be ignored. While my parents pressured me to apply to Ivy League schools with pre-law programs, I applied to state universities with strong computer science departments. Illinois Tech offered me a merit scholarship and one of the best CS programs in the Midwest. When the acceptance came, it felt like a key turning in a lock. "You're throwing away your future," Dad said, disappointment heavy in his voice. Your test scores could get you into Yale computer science. Really, Mom added, baffled. That's not a field for someone with your capabilities. What they really meant was, that's not a field worthy of a Carter. Jason, back for summer break, tried to smooth things over. It's just a phase, he said. Let her get it out of her system before law school. But I didn't want law school. I wanted logic, systems, code. I wanted to create. 6 months after the acquisition, I stood in a conference hall in San Francisco, staring out at a crowd of 2,000 people. Industry leaders, young founders, students, investors. And I was the keynote speaker. I took a breath. My name is Elena Carter. And for years I built in silence. The applause that followed felt surreal, not because I needed it, but because I had once believed I'd never earn it. Backstage, Maya squeezed my hand. You did it, she said. No, I smiled. We did. Nextech was thriving. Our platform had expanded to over 500 hospitals worldwide. Our Singapore pilot was turning into a full rollout. Maya had taken on the coup role, while I led innovation. Strategy at Horizon. We were building faster than ever. But I'd also found balance. Monthly dinners with Jason and Sophia became tradition. Sometimes my parents joined, sometimes they didn't. But the air was different now, less performative, more curious. My mother once brought me a book on UX design. My father recommended a podcast about healthcare startups. I still don't get it all, he admitted over brunch one day. But I'm trying. That's all I ever wanted, I said. And it was true. At home, I created new rhythms. Yoga before meetings, long walks without headphones, Sunday dinners with Maya's family, who'd adopted me like their own. I mentored young women in tech, hosted workshops, joined panels on women in leadership. I told my story, all of it, not to boast, but to remind others. Asterisk, asterisk, you don't need a spotlight to be building something extraordinary. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is work quietly, until the work speaks for itself. Now, I choose when to speak, and when I do, I speak for all the girls who sat at the dinner table feeling invisible, who were told they were too much, or not enough, who built in silence, and rose anyway. The night before my talk, I stood on the balcony of my hotel room overlooking the Bay Bridge. My phone buzzed, a text from Jason. Jason, proud of you, sis. Knock it out of the park tomorrow. Stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't believe the words, but because for the first time, I did. For so long, I had built walls around my achievements. I was afraid their praise would feel false, or opportunistic. But slowly I was learning to receive it, not because I needed it, but because they finally meant it. Sophia had a lot to do with that. She helped reframe their understanding of success, not as something you inherit, but something you define, on your terms, in your time. She once told me, they never knew how to celebrate you, Alina. But they're learning, because you didn't disappear, you evolved. That stuck with me, and I realized, you can forgive people for not understanding your path, as long as they're willing to walk beside you. Now, a few months later, I was invited back to Illinois Tech to speak at a Women in STEM summit. Walking through the halls where I'd once hidden behind screens and coffee cups, I felt something shift, not in the building, but in me. The shy girl who once doubted her voice was now being introduced as one of the most influential innovators in health tech. I opened my talk with a photo, one from college. Me and Maya huddled over a whiteboard, covered in scribbles and post-its. Asterisk, asterisk, this was the first blueprint of Nextech, I told the audience. We didn't have investors. We didn't even have office chairs. But we had a question. What if it's broken, and we can fix it? That was enough. Afterward, dozens of young women came up to speak with me. One said, my parents don't get what I want to do. They think it's a phase. Another asked, did you ever feel like you were disappointing everyone just by being yourself? I told them the truth. Yes, but the only person you'll spend your whole life with is you. Make sure she's proud of the choices you made. A few weeks later, I was walking through O'Hare Airport when I saw a teenage girl reading a book I recognized, Women Who Code the Future. My name was on the back cover. I stopped for a second, debating whether to say anything. I didn't. I just smiled and kept walking. That moment reminded me, The work lives on, even when you're not in the room. Maya and I were invited to co-author a chapter in a medical innovation textbook. We titled it Bridging the Gap: Technology as a Human Solution. It wasn't just about lines of code. It was about empathy, inclusion, and daring to ask what if. Jason and Sophia got married that fall. The ceremony was beautiful. At the reception, my father made a speech. This time, he included me. To both my children, he said. Jason, who followed in my footsteps, and Alina, who forged her own and ended up leading all of us somewhere better. I didn't cry, but I'll never forget that moment. A few weeks later, I found myself invited back to Illinois Tech to give a talk during their annual Women in Innovation event. Standing on that stage, looking out at rows of young women in the same lecture hall, where I once sat unsure of myself, felt surreal. I opened with a photo, Maya and I, sitting on her garage floor, surrounded by whiteboards, takeout boxes, and 2 laptops running on fumes. This was our first office, I said. And this, I held up a slide of our current headquarters, overlooking Lake Michigan. Is what belief looks like when you refuse to let someone else define your potential. After my talk, a student approached me nervously. My dad says tech is for boys, that I should study marketing or teaching instead. But I really want to build things like you do. I smiled. Then start building, I said. And let the world adjust. After the reception, Sophia found me standing outside under the string lights, sipping champagne and watching the stars reflect off the lake. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Just processing. She smiled. They're proud of you, Alina. You know that, right? I took a deep breath. I think I'm finally proud of me too. There was a time I thought the only way to feel whole was through their approval, their applause. But somewhere along this journey, I learned something far more powerful. Self-recognition isn't the reward. It's the foundation. Maya joined us a few minutes later, holding her heels in one hand and a slice of cake in the other. CEO, keynote speaker, startup founder, and still allergic to dancing, she teased. I dance, I protested. You code to music. That's not the same. We laughed. The easy, unburdened kind of laugh that comes when you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And in that moment, under those lights, surrounded by the people I had chosen and the ones who had finally chosen me back, I understood the full measure of what I had built. Not just a company, not just a career, but a life. A full, extraordinary, hard-won life on my own terms. After the reception, Jason approached me with a glass of wine in one hand and a softness in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Dad worked on that speech all week, he said. He really wanted to get it right. I nodded. He did. Jason smiled. I think he finally sees what I've always seen. And what's that? I asked. That you were never trying to compete, he said. You were just trying to be heard? I blinked, caught off guard by the truth of it. He raised his glass. To your voice. And how damn loud it finally became. We clinked glasses. That night, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, a home I'd earned, in a life I'd built, surrounded by people I'd chosen, and I let myself feel it all. The grief of what could have been, the pride in what was, and the hope for what was still to come. Because I had learned the hardest, most beautiful lesson of all. When you stop asking for permission to be who you are, you become unstoppable. After the reception, my mom pulled me aside as I was grabbing my coat. Her eyes were softer than I'd seen in years. Alina, I want to learn more about what you do. About what you've built. I paused. Even if I never fully understand it, she continued. I want to understand you. That meant more than any accolade. More than the Forbes list. More than any valuation. I nodded. I'd like that. And we stood there, quietly, in a new space we hadn't shared before. One built not on expectations, but on curiosity, on care. Weeks passed, the press reached out for more interviews. Students emailed asking for mentorship. A tech documentary. Requested to profile Next Tech. But I wasn't chasing noise anymore. I had already proven what I needed to myself. Everything else. That was just a bonus. Weeks passed. The press reached out for more interviews. Students sent emails asking for mentorship. A tech documentary crew requested to profile Next Tech. But I wasn't chasing noise anymore. I had clarity now. A kind I didn't know I needed. The kind that comes not from applause, but from alignment. I knew who I was. I knew what mattered. Late one Friday evening, I stayed behind at the office. Everyone else had gone home. The space dim and quiet. The skyline glowed through the glass walls as I reviewed our roadmap for the next quarter. And for a moment I paused, just to take it all in the room. The silence, the weight of the choices that had brought me here. I ran my hand over the edge of the conference table. Maya and I used to dream of having. Back then, we worked from folding chairs in her parents' garage, scribbling product ideas on pizza boxes. And now, here I was. No noise, no doubt. Just peace. A knock interrupted the quiet. Maya peeked in, still in her coat, holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might still be here, she said. I smiled. You know me too well. She set 1 cup beside me and glanced at the open laptop. New roadmap. Just refining priorities, I said. We're doing something big next quarter. She nodded, then leaned against the table, looking around the office. Remember when we thought success would feel louder? I laughed softly. Turns out, it just feels right. We stood there, not needing to say much. The silence between us was full of years, of grit, of growth. Then Maya tilted her head. What's next, Alina? I looked out the window. The city stretching beneath us, alive with possibility. Next, I said quietly, we build something even better. And we bring more people with us. Because now, it wasn't just about proving anything to family, to investors, to the world. It was about impact, about legacy, about showing the next girl sitting alone in her room with a laptop and a dream that she's not alone, and she never was. A few weeks later, Maya and I were invited to guest lecture at a graduate seminar on innovation in healthcare. We stood at the front of the lecture hall, her in a crisp blazer, me in my usual black turtleneck, and Jean told the story of how two underestimated girls built a company that helped reshape the medical tech landscape. A student raised her hand. If you could go back and change anything about your journey, would you? Maya looked at me. I thought about it. I don't think I would, I said. Even the painful parts, the invisibility, the rejection. They taught me to define success on my own terms. They gave me fire. And as the class nodded, scribbling notes, I felt something settle inside me. Not satisfaction. Not pride. Belonging. Real. Earned belonging. In purpose. Because even after the applause fades and the headlines move on, the real work continues. It's in the conversations no one sees, the decisions no one claps for, the integrity you hold on to when no one's watching. I wasn't just building a product anymore. I was building a legacy. Something durable, something meaningful, something that might outlast me. And maybe, just maybe, that's the truest kind of success and purpose. Because even after the applause fades and the headlines move on, the real work continues. It's in the conversations no one sees, the decisions no one claps for, the integrity you hold on to when no one's watching. I wasn't just building a product anymore. I was building a legacy, something durable, something meaningful, something that might outlast me. And maybe, just maybe, that's the truest kind of success. A peace I'd earned, not through perfection, but persistence. Through every ignored idea, every underestimation, every time I had to clap for someone else when I wanted to scream, see me too. And now, I did see me. I saw the girl who once coded under her blankets after midnight. I saw the woman who chose patience over proving, who traded applause for authenticity, and I smiled because I liked who she became. Not because others did, but because she'd learned to like herself first. A few days later, I received an email from a high school teacher in Ohio. One of her students had given a presentation on women in tech, and had chosen me as her subject. She said you inspired her to start coding, the teacher wrote. She didn't think girls like her belonged in tech, until she read about you. I sat with that email for a long time. Asterisk, it wasn't about the praise, it was about impact. About showing the next girl sitting alone in her room with a laptop and a dream that she's not alone, and she never was. No noise, no doubt, just peace and purpose. It wasn't about proving anything anymore. Not to my parents, not to Jason, not to an industry that had once overlooked me. It was about the mission, about the platform, about the patients whose lives were being improved, one clear communication at a time, about the team we'd built, engineers, designers, clinicians all working toward a better healthcare experience. And it was about the girl I used to be, the one who stayed up until 2 a.m. debugging code by the light of her laptop, the one who got brushed aside at dinner tables and told to find a more respectable dream. I did this for her, and every time I showed up, unapologetically, I told her, "You were never wrong for dreaming different. You were just early." A week later, I spoke at a leadership summit in New York. The theme was redefining power. I stood in a room full of executives, founders, and future changemakers, and I didn't talk about revenue or scaling strategies. I talked about resilience, about rejection, about the power of being underestimated, and what you can build when no one sees you coming. Afterward, a woman in her 40s approached me with tears in her eyes. "I left tech 15 years ago," she said. "You made me want to try again." That's when I knew this was bigger than me. It always had been. It was about opening doors, about leaving BREAD, about showing the next girl sitting alone in her room with a laptop and a dream that she's not alone, and she never was. That kind of peace doesn't come from proving anything to the world. It comes from finally believing in yourself, without needing anyone else to co-sign it. It comes from knowing that no matter how loudly the world once told you no, you had the courage to whisper yes to yourself, and keep going. And now, I use my voice not to seek validation, but to light the way for the next Alina, the next girl in a too quiet house, who's quietly building something extraordinary. So she knows you don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be perfect to be respected. You don't have to wait for permission to begin. You just have to start and refuse to stop. And in that peace I felt something new, a sense of purpose that wasn't tied to proving anything, not to my parents, not to investors, not to the world, just to me. It wasn't about the valuation anymore, or the keynote stages, or even the headlines. It was about the girl. I used to be the one who whispered maybe into the dark, finally saying yes, out loud. Yes, I am worthy. Yes, I belong here. Yes, I built this, and now, I get to turn around and show the next girl sitting alone in her room with a laptop and a dream that she's not alone, and she never was. Peace and purpose, not just the kind that comes from making it, but the kind that comes from finally understanding that the journey was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was always right to believe, right to build, right to stay the course, right to dream out loud even when no one was listening. And that purpose, it's what carries me now, not through applause, but through quiet moments of clarity, where I know who I am, and I don't need the world to tell me anymore. I do what I do now for something bigger, for legacy, for change, for impact, for the next generation of women who are ready to build, but unsure if they'll be allowed to. I'm not here to ask permission anymore. I'm here to leave the door wide open behind me. Peace wasn't about things being perfect. It was about finally not needing anyone else to tell me I was enough, because I knew, and purpose, that was still evolving. But every decision I made now came from a place of conviction, not compensation. I didn't need to outrun my past anymore. I was building toward the future, and not just for me, for the girl sitting in her bedroom right now, unsure if she belongs in the room she dreams of, for the student doubting her voice at a family dinner, for the woman afraid to choose her own path because it's not the one they wanted for her. I was building for her. For the girl sitting in her bedroom right now, unsure if she belongs in the room she dreams of, for the student doubting her voice at a family dinner, for the woman afraid to choose her own path because it's not the one they wanted for her. I was building for her. For the ones still hiding, still shrinking, still whispering their dreams into pillows because shouting them has never felt safe. I wanted her to know, I see you. You're not alone, and your voice matters, even if they haven't heard it yet, because one day they will, and on that day, you won't need their applause. You'll already know who you are, and that's when the real power begins. About showing the next girl sitting alone in her room with a laptop and a dream that she's not alone. And she never was that about being the voice I needed at 15, the one I searched for in tech magazines, at family dinners, in classrooms that didn't see me. I wasn't just building software. I was building a bridge for the girl sitting in her bedroom right now, unsure if she belongs in the room she dreams of, for the student doubting her voice at a family dinner, for the woman afraid to choose her own path because it's not the one they wanted for her. I was building for her, about showing the next girl sitting alone in her room with a laptop and a dream that she's not alone and she never was, about being the voice I needed at 15, the one I searched for in tech magazines, at family dinners, in classrooms that didn't see me. I wasn't just building software. I was building a bridge for the girl sitting in her bedroom right now, unsure if she belongs in the room she dreams of, for the student doubting her voice at a family dinner, for the woman afraid to choose her own path because it's not the one they wanted for her. I was building for her, and the most unexpected part, in doing that, I built a version of me who doesn't need to be invited anymore. She builds her own room and fills it with voices who see her, who value her, who celebrate her. I had no blueprint for this kind of life, no precedent, no permission, just a whisper that grew into belief, and belief that bloomed into proof. I was enough. I am enough. And I will continue to be with or without their recognition. I wasn't building just for me anymore. I was building for the girl sitting in her bedroom right now, unsure if she belongs in the room she dreams of, for the student doubting her voice at a family dinner, for the woman afraid to choose her own path because it's not the one they wanted for her. I was building for her. And the more I built, the more I realized I wasn't alone. There were so many of us, quietly coding in bedrooms, sketching blueprints on notebooks no one ever read, dreaming beyond what anyone thought we should be allowed to dream. We are not accidents. We are architects of a future that hasn't been imagined yet, but will be, because we dared to imagine it first. I wasn't building just for me anymore. I was building for the girl sitting in her bedroom right now, unsure if she belongs in the room she dreams of, for the student doubting her voice at a family dinner, for the woman afraid to choose her own path because it's not the one they wanted for her. I was building for her. And the more I built, the more I realized I wasn't alone. There were thousands of us, working quietly, building bravely, dreaming loudly, even if only to ourselves. Girls who coded in basements while their brothers got praised at dinner. Women who launched side hustles in secret, waiting for someone to finally ask, "What do you love to do?" We are everywhere and we are enough. I wasn't building just for me anymore. I was building for the girl sitting in her bedroom right now, unsure if she belongs in the room she dreams of, for the student doubting her voice at a family dinner, for the woman afraid to choose her own path because it's not the one they wanted for her. I was building for her. And the more I built, the more I realized I wasn't alone. There were thousands of us, working quietly, building bravely, dreaming loudly even if only to ourselves. Girls who coded in basements while their brothers got praised at dinner. Women who launched side hustles in secret, waiting for someone to finally ask, "What do you love to do?" We are everywhere, and we are enough. That kind of peace doesn't come from being recognized. It comes from recognizing yourself. And choosing, again and again, to trust the vision only you can see. Sometimes I think about the younger version of me, the girl in her bedroom with a secondhand laptop, and a dream that felt too big to say out loud. I wish I could go back and tell her, "You're not too much, you're exactly enough." And one day they'll see you. But more importantly, you'll see you. And when that happens, the world starts to shift. Not because they finally clap, but because you finally stop waiting for them to. The kind of peace that only comes when you've stopped trying to be someone else's version of successful. I wasn't the girl begging for approval anymore. Asterisk asterisk. I was the woman creating impact, the founder mentoring the next generation, the daughter no longer trying to earn love through achievement, but learning to receive it anyway. And when I finally turned off the lights and stepped out into the cool Chicago night, I looked up at the stars, the same stars that used to watch me cry quietly in my dorm room, wondering if I'd ever be seen. Now they watched me rise, not because someone handed me permission, but because I gave it to myself. I walked over to the window and looked out over the lights of Chicago. They sparkled like possibilities, endless waiting. Bright, I thought of the girls still coding in their bedrooms, still hearing no, still being asked to explain why their dreams mattered. I wanted them to know something I had once needed to hear. You're not crazy for believing in what no one else sees yet. You're early, you're building, and one day they'll see it too. Not because you screamed loud enough, but because your work whispered the truth in a way they couldn't ignore. I was building for the girl who had been told to be quiet at dinner, for the woman who was told her ambition was intimidating, for the young coder who had no mentors and too many questions. I was building for her, because I had been her. And sometimes, I still was. Every time I walked into a boardroom and was underestimated. Every time a headline credited Maya alone, even though she always corrected them. Every time someone called me quiet, as if silence meant smallness, not strategy. I was building for all of us. And as I stood there, I thought about what this all really meant. It wasn't just about proving anything to the people who doubted me, it was about showing the next girl sitting alone in her room with a laptop and a dream that she's not alone. And she never was. I was building for her. For the girl who had been told to be quiet at dinner. For the woman whose ambition was called too much. For the coder who hid her brilliance behind just helping with a website. For the dreamer still afraid to take that first step. Because someone, somewhere, needs to see a version of herself that made it. Not because she was the loudest in the room, but because she never stopped building, even when no one was watching, about showing the next girl sitting alone in her room with a laptop, and a dream that she's not alone, and she never was. To the girl dreaming in the dark, thinking no one will ever understand what she's building. To the woman rewriting her story, line by line, after being told she wasn't enough. To anyone still waiting to feel seen. This was always for you, not just the company, not just the code, the journey, the fight, the silence, the breakthrough, all of it. Because the truth is, you don't have to be loud to matter. You don't have to be famous to be powerful. You just have to believe in what you're building even when no one else does. So here's to the quiet ones, to the builders, to the girls who never stopped.